If you watch enough home renovation shows on TV, you start to believe that flipping a house is easy. You knock down a few walls, throw up some white subway tile, install a kitchen island, and suddenly you've made a $500,000 profit in 3 weeks. But TV doesn't show you the reality. It doesn't show you the structural loads, the electrical codes, or the foundation settling. In construction, if you care more about the paint color than the foundation, the house will eventually collapse. The same goes for a marriage. My name is Jackson. I'm 38 years old, and I am a licensed general contractor and structural engineer. I run a highly reputable construction firm. 5 years ago, I married Brooke. Brooke was a receptionist at a real estate agency, but her real dream was to be an influencer and a luxury house flipper. For the first few years, I helped her flip small starter homes. I did all the heavy lifting, the framing, the plumbing, the permits, completely for free, while she picked out the light fixtures and took selfies for her Instagram. We made good money, and I was happy to support her dream. But then, Brooke decided she wanted to play in the big leagues. She found a massive 100-year-old historic mansion in the wealthiest part of the city. It was dilapidated, but she insisted that if we bought it and flipped it, we could list it for $4 million. The problem was, we couldn't afford the loan. That's when she brought in an outside investor, and that's when the foundation of my life started to crack.
The investor's name was Logan. Logan was a 40-year-old venture capitalist who drove a matte black G-Wagon, wore loafers without socks, and constantly talked about his portfolio. He agreed to front the $1.5 million to buy the mansion, under the condition that Brooke managed the design and I did the structural contracting for free as our sweat equity. I agreed because I loved my wife. But as soon as the ink was dry on the deed, Brooke's personality completely changed. They and Logan became inseparable. They were constantly having design meetings over $200 sushi lunches, while I was covered in 100-year-old toxic dust, tearing out asbestos. The red flags on the job site were impossible to ignore. First, the arrogance. Brooke started treating me like a hired laborer instead of her husband. When I told her a wall she wanted to remove was load-bearing and required a $10,000 steel I-beam to support the second floor, she rolled her eyes. "Jackson, you always overcomplicate things. Logan's guy said we could just use a wooden header. Stop slowing down my project." Second, the cheap labor. Brooke and Logan started bringing in unvetted, unlicensed day laborers to do complex electrical and plumbing work behind my back to save money. Third, the schedule. Brooke was constantly staying out until 2 a.m., claiming she and Logan were reviewing staging furniture catalogs, but she would come home smelling like expensive cologne and expensive wine. I was working 14-hour days to build her dream, and she was treating me like an obstacle.
I discovered the truth on a rainy Thursday morning. I was at the mansion early to inspect some drywall framing. Brooke had left her iPad on the makeshift drafting table the night before. I tapped the screen to check the time, and a notification popped up. It was a message from Logan. I didn't want to be that guy, but my gut was screaming. I swiped the notification. I didn't just find an affair. I found a premeditated financial slaughter. Logan wrote, "The appraisal came in early. If we finish the cosmetic stuff, it will list for $4.2 million. My lawyer is drafting the LLC paperwork today. As soon as the drywall is up, fire Jackson. You file the divorce papers the day we list the house, and we split the $2.5 million profit. I can't wait to wake up next to you in Cabo." Brooke replied, "I know, baby, just be patient. We need Jackson to finish the master bathroom plumbing and sign off on the city framing inspection first. Once his license is on the paperwork, we dump him. He's such an idiot, he works 12 hours a day and thinks it's for our future." I stood in the dusty, hollowed-out living room of that mansion. I had destroyed my back, breathed in fiberglass,
and exhausted myself for 6 months for this woman. And her plan was to use my master license to legitimize a flip, take millions of dollars with her lover, and leave me with nothing but calloused hands. They thought I was an idiot, but they forgot that I was the guy holding the blueprints.
If you want to tear down a house, you don't start at the roof. You take out the supports and let gravity do the work. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her. If I walked away right then, they would just hire another contractor. No, I needed to make sure they couldn't just ruin my life. I needed to make sure their lives were permanently condemned. I locked the iPad and went to work. When Brooke and Logan arrived at the site 3 hours later, holding Starbucks cups and laughing, I smiled at them. "Hey guys," I said, wiping sweat off my forehead. "The framing is almost done. I think you guys should take over the rest of the project management. You've got a great vision." Brooke beamed. "Really, baby? You trust me?" "I absolutely trust you, Brooke," I said. "It's your masterpiece." The next morning, I drove down to the City Department of Building and Safety. Because I was the contractor of record on the permits, I had total authority. I quietly filed a formal withdrawal of contractor form. I legally removed my master license and my insurance from the property, citing a contractual dispute. In the eyes of the city, from that day forward, any work done on that mansion was unpermitted, uninsured, and highly illegal. I didn't tell Brooke. I just packed up my expensive tools and told her I got a massive commercial contract across town and she would have to finish the flip without me. She was thrilled to see me leave. Over the next 2 months, I drove by the mansion occasionally and watched from a distance as Brooke and Logan dug their own grave. Without me there to enforce the building codes, they went wild. To save money, Logan brought in absolute hack crews. I watched through the windows as they took chainsaws to load-bearing columns to create Brooke's precious open-concept living room, replacing them with cheap 2x4s that couldn't support a doghouse, let alone a slate roof. I saw unlicensed electricians running live wires directly over copper plumbing pipes, a massive fire hazard. They didn't pull a single new permit. They didn't call for a single city inspection. They just covered all the lethal, illegal work with beautiful, expensive Venetian plaster and imported Italian marble. It looked like a multi-million-dollar dream house, but underneath the paint, it was a structural death trap waiting to collapse. I documented everything. I took photos of the illegal work through the windows. I pulled the public records showing the lack of inspections. I compiled a massive, terrifying dossier of every single building code violation they had committed. Then, I waited for closing day. Brooke and Logan listed the house for $4.2 million. Because it looked so beautiful on the surface, it sold in 3 days to an all-cash buyer. The day before the final walkthrough, Brooke handed me divorce papers. She gave me a fake dramatic speech about how we had grown apart and how she needed to fly solo. "I completely understand, Brooke," I said, signing the papers without even looking at her. "Good luck with your flight." The next afternoon, Brooke, Logan, the wealthy cash buyer, and the real estate agents were all standing in the grand foyer of the mansion, drinking champagne to celebrate the closing. At exactly 2 p.m., 4 vehicles pulled into the massive circular driveway. It wasn't a catering company. It was 2 white trucks from the City Department of Building and Safety, a red SUV from the fire marshal, and a squad car from the local police. I watched from my truck parked down the street. The chief building inspector, a guy I had known for 10 years, walked up the steps with a clipboard, flanked by the fire marshal. Brooke opened the door, her smile faltering. "Can I help you?" "Brooke, last name?" the inspector said loudly. "I am ordering an immediate evacuation of this property. This structure is in imminent danger of catastrophic failure."
Logan stepped forward, looking furious. "What the hell are you talking about? We just passed appraisal." "You didn't pass city inspections," the inspector snapped. "The contractor of record pulled his permits 2 months ago. We received an anonymous tip with photographic evidence of severe, unpermitted structural modifications and lethal electrical hazards hidden behind the drywall." The cash buyer dropped his champagne glass. "Unpermitted structural modifications?" he yelled at Logan. The fire marshal stepped past them and slapped a massive bright red sticker on the custom mahogany front door. "Red tag, condemned, do not enter." "This property is officially condemned," the inspector announced. "No one is allowed inside until a structural engineer signs off and every piece of drywall is ripped out so we can inspect the framing." Brooks started screaming hysterically. Logan looked like he was going to pass out. I put my truck in drive, honked my horn once as I drove past, and went to get a steak dinner.
The smoke is clearing. The financial explosion was a beautiful thing to witness. The cash buyer immediately pulled out of the deal and sued Brooke and Logan for severe real estate fraud and failure to disclose unpermitted work. Because the house was red tagged, it was legally uninhabitable. To make it sellable again, the city ordered Logan to tear out all the millions of dollars of custom marble, tile, and drywall, hire a new structural engineer, and rebuild the entire interior to code. The repair bill was estimated at $1.2 million. Logan didn't have the cash. He defaulted on the hard money loan he used to buy the property. The bank foreclosed on the condemned mansion, and Logan was forced into personal bankruptcy, completely destroying his fake venture capitalist empire. When the dust settled, Logan realized Brooke had nothing to offer him without my labor. He dumped her and blamed the entire catastrophe on her bad design choices. Because Brooke had signed her name as the project manager on the LLC, the city hit her with over $50,000 in fines for illegal construction and permit violations. During our divorce mediation, she tried to claim half of my construction company, saying she had supported my business. My lawyer laughed in her face. He presented the evidence of her fraud, the affair, and the massive fine she owed the city. She walked away with absolutely nothing but a mountain of legal debt and a permanently ruined reputation in the real estate market.
It's been almost 3 years since that open house. My construction business is thriving. I only take on clients who respect the process and respect the safety codes. I bought myself a cabin out by the lake, and I spend my weekends fishing, instead of inhaling drywall dust for someone else's Instagram feed. Last I heard, Brooke lost her real estate license due to the fraud lawsuit. She is currently working at a home improvement store, mixing paint for actual contractors. Logan is still tied up in federal bankruptcy court and drives a 10-year-old sedan instead of a G-Wagon. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's this. A beautiful exterior means absolutely nothing if the foundation is rotten. If someone tries to use your hard work as a stepping stone while treating you like dirt, don't argue with them. Let them take the tools. Step back, let them swing the sledgehammer, and watch them knock down their own load-bearing walls. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What's the worst DIY home disaster you've ever seen? Stay safe and always pull your permits.